left of the pitch. Carranzo beats it like Picasso.
Week 4 of the CPL Newsroom presented by Volkswagen. Charlie O'Connor-Clark, Mitchell Tierney, Alex Gangué-Ruzic, as always. We got to find some more interesting ways of starting these podcasts rather than just saying hello to everybody, but we will get there eventually. But we got to get right into it as usual this week, guys, because 4 more games, 2 derbies, both of them ending in draws, 2 big away performances for the top 2 teams in the league. First place Atletico Ottawa and second place Halifax Wanderers. And it's the Wanderers that we're starting with this week. They go to Winnipeg, and for not the first time this year, they are spoiling the home opener party. They beat Valor 1-0 thanks to Vitor Diaz and Thiago Coimbra linking up off the bench. What a game this was for the Wanderers, who are still finding themselves unbeaten to open the season. Mitchell Tierney, you were on this game for us at CanPL.ca.
Sure was.
This was a good one on Friday night in Winnipeg. We got to talk about the Wanderers' depth. 2 guys off the bench score the goal here. Thiago Coimbra has already got a winner off the bench as well this season. Is the Wanderers' depth the key to their success on the road so far?
I think it absolutely is. And you look at the 2 road wins so far this year. The first one at York Lions Stadium, Thiago Coimbra provides the winner off of the bench with literally his first touch against York United. And then on Friday, it's kind of a triple sub in the 66th minute that really makes a difference for them, bringing on Diaz, and Coimbra, and the 3 of those players. I think Patrice Geyser put it perfectly when he said they did 90 minutes of running in their 20 minutes off of the bench. Like Coimbra comes in, gets stuck in immediately. I think he contests like 8 duels or something like that. He gets he gets involved, wins the ball high off the pitch. Same with Diaz. Like these guys are joining the game, and they're not just filling up the numbers. They are absolutely adding a different profile and adding a different style in the way they're attacking. Coimbra's got to be an absolute nightmare for defenders to come off the bench because we know how good he is in the air, how physically dominant he is, and just the runs he makes. So that's obviously a challenge for opposing teams, is that they can do this as well. And I think the way and the timing of how they're using their subs is a lot better this year. I think Alex talked about that last week on the show, but to give these guys a bit of a run out there, and instead of maybe bringing them on a little bit later in the game, you see how this match is going in the 66th minute. You're like, okay, let's give these guys a chance to change the game, and they absolutely did. So a lot to like in that, and the key stat coming into this season for the Halifax Wanderers was just 3 road wins over the past 2 campaigns. And you look back at that 2023 season, and they actually had 8 draws, I believe, on the road. So they were in a lot of games. They were, tying a lot of matches, but they didn't have those match winners this season. I think they have those match winners on the road, and they're coming from that bench depth. So, we could be having a very different conversation if these players don't come off the bench at York, at Valor, and it's 3 road draws to start the season. Instead, it's 2 wins and a draw. And, the Halifax Wanderers are absolutely early on in this year figuring out how to win games on the road.
They sure are. They got 7 points on the road, and they had 6 all of last year, which is crazy. But I think it's a good point about making smarter subs, trying to change games rather than just put fresher legs on the pitch. They've already got 3 goals and 2 assists from their bench players this year in 4 games. But it can't just be that, they don't think it's hard to play on the road anymore. It can't just be that they found a way to go away from home. There's a difference to the way that this Halifax team is playing, a difference to the confidence. Alex, let's maybe bring you in here. What is different, do you think, about this year's Halifax Wanderers?
Yeah, I think for me, the big thing is the defense. I think the defense is much changed, and without that, it just makes you better on the road. Like they press now, they're more comfortable sitting back. Just having Mayor Giguère as a leader in the middle back there, the organization around him, extending into the midfield, Isaiah Johnston, that's another key piece that has come in and helped stabilize And then, of course, just the system, how, Patrice Geyser shifted to more of like a 4-4-2 off the ball, Jesse Marsh inspired, a little pressing here. But he's adjusted. Game one, we saw 4-2-2 with guys flying forward. And then against Valor, knowing that, they want to build and that they struggle to maybe build out of the back, Patrice Geyser shifted to more of a 4-2-3-1 and kind of clogged up the middle. Like, you're seeing a different defensive intelligence. And for me, that's huge because last year we knew they could attack. And I think based on, like, they did get a bit unlucky attacking wise. I know Patrice, he kind of hovers over the line if he's going to say he was unlucky or not. He doesn't like to say the word unlucky, but they were unlucky. They underperformed their XG significantly. Like, that stuff's going to correct itself, especially now that you have a healthy Thiago Coimbra. You've seemed to figure out the attack. The defense was the bigger worry because they lost a lot of games or drew a lot of games they should have done better. And then now through 4 games, other than the Ottawa one where they kind of lost their way, the other 3 games, they've just shut down these games as soon as they go up 2-1, 2-0, 1-0. And that's something we didn't see from them last year.
Yeah, absolutely. Exciting to watch the Wanderers again, which is always good news for the Canadian Premier League. Less good news, though. Let's talk about Valor. We're going to start with Daryl Fordise. For the 3rd time this year, he is taking over from Phil Dos Santos on the touchline, but Phil's suspension is now over. So this is the last time we'll hear from Daryl in the head coach's chair. So I think we're going to throw to him first because tough game for Valor, but let's see how Daryl broke it down.
Yeah, we did well to get through them and around them at times, and we just weren't clinical enough in and around the box. We need to get more men into the box because it gives us a greater advantage, greater probabilities of the ball falling to one of us. So just we weren't clinical enough whenever we had those opportunities to go that little bit more intense in the final third to create our own opportunities. So it's obviously it's frustrating, but we will get back to the training ground and we'll work on it.
Not clinical enough, not enough men in the box. I think just the 1 goal for Valor this year so far in 3 games. Mitch, your thoughts on Valor's attack this season and whether they maybe need a little bit more balance in it?
Yeah, I mean, what I liked in this game was there was a clear idea of what they wanted to do, and especially when they had the ball, they did a decent job of doing it, which was to get behind those Halifax wing backs, those wide players, and have that with, we know how many good wingers and fullbacks that they have on this Valor team. They got into crossing situations a lot. They had 34 crosses in the game, but that's only half the battle. You have to have a player to cross to, and too many times it was Sean Hundle kind of isolated in there. They have those 35 crosses, only 5 of them connect. So the next step really is to, again, have that balance and maybe add more players into the mixer. It's something Bobby Smirniotis talks about all the time at Ford, is if you have 4 or 5 players in the box, your percentages of scoring go up way higher. And, it doesn't necessarily have to be someone like Hundle, a target man who can knock down headers. It can be anyone, like just having another player in there to put pressure on defenders to make it more difficult to clear. If they botch a clearance, there's one more guy on your team the ball could drop to. The other winger, if that's Twardek, has the ball, Faria tucking in, not always just making the back post run, but sometimes cutting in and making different runs. Like, all of these things we didn't quite see from Valor. So that's what I think is the next step of their evolution, and whether that's adding another striker into the mix and, playing with 2 strikers. So you have someone else in the middle. We know how good of crossers these guys are. There were a few times last season where Temi Ensenoglu forced own goals just by how good his crosses were. So the more guys you can add in there, the more players you can, add chaos and, just more confidence in the box. I think that's going to make a big difference here for this Valor team. And that's what was missing in this game. And I think that's what's kind of been missing all season for them.
Yeah, absolutely. On to BC. The Salish Sea derby finishes 1-1. And we got to start with Vancouver Football Club, who for almost an hour of this game, 1-0 ahead, playing pretty well, at least on level footing with Pacific, if not slightly the better team. But then Kunle Dadaluke red card, kind of falls apart a little bit, and Pacific get back into the game, find that equalizer, and neither team is really able to solve the other one again. AGR, you were at this game for us. A lot to like in these last couple weeks in Vancouver FC's level of play. But the question that you have for them is, can they keep that up while also cutting out some of these costly mistakes elsewhere?
Yeah, it was definitely a bit of a weird one for Vancouver, because I think overall you can be pleased with how it went. Yes, this is probably a game they should have got 3 points out of, but at the end of the day, they put in a good performance. They had to play down a player for 40 minutes, which is never easy. Pacific ended up having almost 80% of possession after the red card or something bonkers like that. And Vancouver, only gave up the one, held on late, got the point. I think from a psychological standpoint, you take that. At the same time, the red card just looms large, because it's like they were so good before, in the sense that they were in control. Like, Pacific had nothing going for them in the first half. Even coming out the second half, they had nothing going, and that red card kind of gave them the lifeline they maybe didn't deserve. And if you're Vancouver, you're frustrated, because that was a story against Calgary. They were by far the better team against Calgary. That one was clear. Yet, just late on, they miss a chance to go up 2-0. The defense slips for one moment. You have Toby Warshevsky on the field. In this game, it's like you're in control. You're doing well. You got some new energy potentially coming off the bench. And then before you even get a chance to use any of that, you got a red card. And I think the frustrating part for Afshin Gatbi is, over the last few years, a lot of times he sat there and bemoaned some of the inexperience from his young players naturally, right? They're learning the game. They're learning the moments. This latest moment comes from one of the experienced guys, a champion, a guy you've brought in to help with that in Kunle Dadaluk. Granted, it was, very out of character. Kunle Dadaluk, as many will tell you, is, very, very chill, very outgoing guy. Just one of those moments. You're playing your old team, new occasion gets to him. But if you're Gatbi, you're sitting there thinking, like, what do I do at this point? I think that's something to watch for Vancouver, because these two games have been great in terms of, like, if they keep this structure the rest of the year, you can see a route towards them getting results. At the same time, they have to find a way to just cut out these little mistakes. And it's hard to know how, because you can't really train this. It's a psychological thing. And I'm fascinated to see if they can find a way to cut it out, because when you're such a young group, these moments just will always find a way to creep in.
And Kunle now, of course, suspended for 3 games with a red card for violent conduct. So it's a good thing Paris G got back on the pitch in this game. I guess what we'll say about that. It's a little bit like Halifax last year, though. A lot to like in the way they play, but kind of shooting themselves in the foot a couple of times. Certainly going to hope that that's not a trend for Vancouver in the coming weeks. We will watch them with interest, but let's look at Pacific here. And again, we're going to start with what the coach had to say, because I think James Merriman is the most frustrated person on Vancouver Island. So let's see what his assessment of this performance was.
Like I said, the game was stop-start. They're trying to manage the game. They're up a goal. They're down a man. So they're going to do that. But you can feel little fouls, chippy game, but not too much. But I think the rivalry will continue to grow. It's a derby match. Some of our fans were here to support us, and it sets up the second game. I'm sure you're going to feel even more intensity.
But Alex, you kind of written a little bit about Pacific here. What do you think's going on with them? And do you think some of these goal scoring issues are maybe causing a wider confidence problem for this team?
You have to start to think so, because it's, okay, the first game, honestly, I think that's Pacific FC, what they want to be, right? You score early. You start, you use that early goal to get some confidence. You get a second, you lock things down defensively. You're threatening for a third. You win, 2-0. Since then, their 3 games have just been all over the map in different ways. Against Forge, they never really got in the game. You give up 2 cheap set pieces. Bad day at the office. Wipe it off. Go on to Halifax. Halifax, you play well, but you just miss these chances, and then you make a couple of cheap defensive mistakes again. And now against Vancouver, you just never really got in the game. At the same time, it's a game where you're only down 1-0 at halftime, and then you get a red card, which is a lifeline for a team that's, struggling to score goals. You get 40 minutes of the ball for free. At the very least, you're getting a chance to work on your attack. If you struggle to score, you're getting 40 minutes of film to go over in the week where you're like, okay, guys, this is what we need to work on. And there's just a lot of little things on both sides of the ball. I look at the goal. The goal was just so out of character for Pacific. Usually they're incredible in terms of, just building out the back, not making any cheap mistakes. Their goals will come against from moments of brilliance. No, it's a routine moment in the build-up. The ball's at the right center back, and then next thing you know, it's played across the middle, bouncing a free ball that Terran Campbell could have picked off with his eyes closed, and then a touch later, it's in your net. The fact that Pacific's starting to make mistakes like this, and mistakes like they did in the other weeks against Halifax and Forge, that's a bit surprising. And James Merriman clearly felt his team is feeling that. He brought in a more experienced back line, right? He slots in Ali Indom. He brings in Sean Melvin, kind of mentioning he felt he needed a bit more experience back there. And the fact they still make a mistake like that, I think right now for Pacific, they're going to have to find a way to score, but also it doesn't matter if they're not scoring, if they're giving away these cheap goals. So it is something to watch. That it feels right now they have no confidence in any part of their games after just four matches. The good news, it's early, but you can't let that compound, and it feels like it's slowly starting to build.
Yeah, absolutely. Doesn't get any easier for Pacific because they're in Ottawa next Saturday to play a game that's going to be at 10 a.m. Pacific. So they'll be wanting to get their coffee early that morning. But speaking of Atletico Ottawa, we got to start with them. This game against Cavalry on national television on TSN. What a performance from Atletico Ottawa, especially in the second half here. Don't look now, but they are in first place. One own goal, one pretty dangerous counterattacking goal, and then another one where a young player just picks up on a crazy miscommunication at the back. But before I get a little bit deeper into this Ottawa team and their performance, I want to ask both of you guys just quickly, is this the best Atletico Ottawa team we've ever seen? Mitchell?
I think I'm going to have to see it over the course of a full season, because obviously 2022, they found an identity and it worked for them, and, it brought them to the top of the table. So I think that's still the best Atletico Ottawa team. Best Atletico Ottawa team to watch? Absolutely. No question about that. This team is so much fun to watch right now. They have great attacking ideas. So I'll agree with that. I just think I need a little more time before I say best ever.
AGR?
Yeah, I think it's too early. Well, far too early for that. But it's worth noting they got all the pieces, right? Like you got Nathan Ingham in goal. Great performance. You got the performer of the match. Like you got Amir Didic at the back and a couple of young guys that don't seem to fear anything, which is always nice. That midfield of Castro and Aparicio has potential to be one of the best ever. Like Castro, every time I watch him, I'm just left in awe by him. And of course, you have David Rodriguez, who had himself quite the debut month in the Canadian Premier League. What was it, up to 4 or 5 goal contributions by the end of it with this assist this weekend. So you have all the pieces. So it's just for them, it's consistency, continuing that, and as teams adapt, keep finding solutions.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I am going to say that this is the most talented Atletico Ottawa team that I've seen. I mean, there was an argument that last year was the most talented on paper. They brought in Aparicio, Didic, they brought back Tabla. They just weren't quite playing in a way that got the best out of all of these players. This year, they are. They've gone to this kind of 3-4-3 system, which is helping them find the spaces. They're a lot wider in attack this year. Last year they played with a back five, but the fullbacks were fullbacks. It was Danny Morer or Chris Twardock on one side and Mateo De Brienne on the left. And they had far more defensive responsibilities. This year, their wingbacks are wingers. It's Kevin Dos Santos. It's Gabriel Antonoro. I mean, it's Brett Levi's when he comes back. And that's, I think, what's more exciting about this Ottawa team is they play with so much width. The back three is working the way an attacking back three is supposed to, where it helps them find different channels. Most teams in the CPL defend in a 4-4-2. So to attack in this way, where you've got 3 across the front plus those wingbacks coming in, helps them create those overloads, helps them counterattack. And that's what's so much fun for me about this Atletico Ottawa team. And the other thing to point out is how young they are. Noah Abatne scores the winner last week against York. He's an under-21 player, injured this week. So Sergei Kozlovsky comes in. This kid is 16, and he's starting right next to another under-21 in Loic Cloutier. They've got Gabriel Antonoro on his left as the wingback. These are all under-21 players. And then when one of them needs a break, they bring on Tier Walker, who is not technically an under-21 player this year, was the last couple of years. So many young players. And the fact that even Amir Didic, who is a veteran on this team, plays on the right of the back three rather than in the middle, because they want to get his passing range, more space on the pitch, and they trust Loic Cloutier to play that middle role, is so impressive and says so much about the veterans on this team, like Aparicio, like Didic, like Castro, who are able to play with these young players, and what Diego Mejia has brought to this team. We asked Nathan Ingham after the game. He's been around Atletico Ottawa for a long time. What is different about this year's team? He talked about Mejia and the culture he's brought. So if we're able to throw to that clip, I really want to hear what Nathan Ingham had to say here.
He's brought culture first and foremost. He's got a wicked attitude. He knows when to lay into the players a little bit, but he's got a lot of joy to him. I'm learning more about Mexican culture as it is, and our players from there, and all of them have this like real joy. It's like they haven't forgot that childhood love for the game, and it was something that we've been missing in the past. The culture here has grown into something a lot more than just playing football. It's a lot more taking care of each other and enjoying the sport, enjoying the process. And that stuff shows on the field. And I would argue at the highest level, that team chemistry and buying in, those things are a lot more important than individual skill. And fortunately, we have both. So credit to him. And once again, credit to the front office getting him here.
First place, Atletico Ottawa. By the way, that's their fourth win at ATCO Field. They've only ever lost there once in their history, which is crazy. But speaking of ATCO Field, Cavalry FC, the reigning champs, very frustrated to start this year. No wins yet. And it all really fell apart in like just over 5 minutes. We're going to roll this whole sequence that happened to Cavalry. See, it starts 57-49 when we start this clip. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you come and check this all out. It's been an even game until here. Yeah, it's been a pretty even game until here. Cavalry maybe even had the better chances, especially in the first half. But crazy deflection from Antonoro's shot off Bradley Camden-Feo's back. Atletico Ottawa take a lead. That's not always the killer for Cavalry. They've come back before. They go down the other way. They win a free kick. Great, right? Responding immediately. Not so fast because Bradley Camden-Feo, again, is the center of attention. He lashes out at Kozlowski, sent off in a moment of frustration. And all of a sudden, all of that, quick response energy is gone. And then almost immediately after this free kick, which, the distraction kind of takes away from the danger of this free kick, Cavalry are letting Ottawa go right back up the other direction, not tracking back as Rodriguez kind of sprints down the left flank, and Balou Tabla is pretty much just unmarked. Again, just watch this clip and how quickly, they win the ball, plays it up to David Rodriguez, who's just running into so much space. And you can see Tabla coming into the frame now. There's nobody really with him. He passes it, back. There's just nobody marking the right guys. Tabla's in the middle of the box. Pretty easy finish for him. And this is kind of where the game just fell apart. Alex, I think we'll come to you here quickly. Just how frustrated should Cavalry be by the way their season has started? Or is this a game where, it did just kind of suddenly fall apart for them?
Yeah, I think for Cavalry, there's going to have to be just, concerns of how they defended in this game and the goals that they give away. Okay, the first one, certainly a bit of misfortune. But even if you're down a player, we've seen it from Cavalry before. Like even going down a player 1-0, you kind of think they still have a chance. They can still get after it, but it's just sloppy. And it was the same thing against Vancouver where, again, one goal flattered Cavalry because they just gave up too many chances. It was too fast and loose at the back. And I think for the Cavalry right now, it has to start with their defense. We know how good they can be in attack. We know the pieces they have. That'll take time to click. Where Shuski's going to get going. Ali Musi, who's had a surprisingly quiet start to the season, is going to get going. But for the back, that's always a staple of Cavalry going back to 2019. And for it to be in such disarray at the back right now is definitely something they'll be looking at in the training ground is why the slow start has happened.
One more chance for Cavalry to get everybody to stop saying they've never won a game in April because they play the Edmonton Scottish in a Canadian Championship this week. I'm sure nobody would like to kill that stat more than Tommy Wheeldon Jr. And we won't mention that the stat is still going to be alive in the Canadian Premier League no matter what, unfortunately for Cavalry. But frustration for the Cavs. Let's end the show in Toronto where York United and Forge FC playing in the first 905 derby of the season. And this was a fun one, at least the first half. 2 lead changes. It's 2-2 at halftime, and then it also ends that way. Mitch, we're going to start with York and Riley Ferrazzo in particular and his kind of opposite side counterpart, Max Ferrari. You wrote about York's wingbacks and how they're kind of driving a lot of their success this year. What impresses you about them?
Yeah, I think York will probably be happier of the two sides after this draw, and that's because we see another good example of the identity they're trying to build. And I think that starts with the wingbacks, the way that they are able and free to fly forward and contribute in attack. You see Riley Ferrazzo scoring for the second consecutive game. I think he maybe meant this one a little bit more than last week's shot cross against Atletico Ottawa, but it's another example of the positions he's taking up. And then on the opposite side, I think Max Ferrari's been crucial because he's basically playing as that right winger when they're in attack, and then Gabby Bitar can tuck into that number 10 position that he loves to play. When you've got him in the middle, Altobelli's free to go hunt in different spaces, which we know he likes to do, and it makes them more fluid. And then you've got to respect the width that they have, and all of a sudden then they can attack you through the middle, which Sholajima did a very good job of. You got Altobelli, you've got Bitar who can go through the middle as well. So I think that this is a system that already, with new players and a new system, is coming together very well and making them very watchable and fun in attack.
Yeah, goal per game, Julian Altobelli so far, by the way, with his 4th to start the season. I think you're right. York probably the happier of the two teams from this game, but maybe a little bit of frustration that they now have led in their last 3 games and won none of them. Bit of frustration there, but still probably a pretty good performance. Forge, however, not at all happy, I think, with their performance. Mitch, you've wrote about them as well. 2 weeks in a row now, I think. Are Forge lacking a little bit of their signature ruthlessness so far this year?
I think they are. I mean, they come out and score a very Forge goal, if I can call it that, with Hojabrapor clipping a ball out wide into a space that I know they wanted to attack into Tristan Borges. And then Rezart Rama, if you watch the clip of the goal, he's slowly just sneaking up until he's all of a sudden in the middle. And those are the kind of runs that they love to have their fullbacks make into the center. But after that, I mean, not only did they go and make a bunch of errors and concede a goal to equalize, but I thought after that, like, they just completely lost their energy. And the identity of Forge has always been when they find a perceived weakness, as it seemed like they did down that right flank. They just keep attacking it until the dam finally breaks. And for some reason, they just didn't go there that often, especially in the second half. Like, they just changed up the way they attacked, and it wasn't quite as ruthless as we've seen in the past. So, past Forge teams, they get that goal in the 12th minute and they're cruising to victory. This time, it was a little bit less comfortable for them, certainly, and they end up with a single point. And I think that's why the past few weeks we're talking about them drawing versus, matches that were very much there to win. So that's something for them to figure out. How can they be more ruthless in these games? Because that's always been what sets Forge apart, is when they find a weakness, they just keep exploiting it until they find victory.
Yeah. Speaking of uncomfortable, perhaps, Forge head to the Wanderers grounds next week. Not an easy place for them specifically to play. And obviously Dan Nimick's return to Halifax. That game's going to be on TSN, so that'll be fun. Maybe interesting that Brian Wright took the penalty this week instead of Nimick after Nimick missed last week. But, there are enough players on this Forge roster that can take a spot kick. So I think they will be rotating a little bit. Anyway, just to wrap us up here, let's bring up the standings if we can, because we're 4 weeks in, which means we can start making vast conclusions about all of these teams. Atletico Ottawa and Halifax, 1 and 2, split only on goal differential or head. I think we're down to like the 4th or 5th tiebreaker with them because they drew against each other. But they're on 10 points. Forge in 3rd on 8. We got a bit of a gap to York on 4, Pacific on 4, and then 3 teams outside the playoffs: Vancouver, Cavalry, and Valor, each with 1 point, all looking for their first win of the season. Maybe it'll be next weekend. I don't know if we have the schedule for next week that we can bring up, but York United and Cavalry on Friday, Ottawa and Pacific Saturday afternoon, followed by Halifax and Forge, Valor and Vancouver wrapping up that evening slate. Also got Canadian Championship starting up this week. Atletico Ottawa against Grossopi, Cavalry against Edmonton Scottish. The two big CPL contests starting off this week, and then we've also got Toronto FC and Montreal in midweek, as well as the Whitecaps playing Miami. So lots to watch on OneSoccer, I think, this week for sure. Anyway, that's it for our show this week. Thank you very, very much for watching, and we'll see you all next Monday.
the width of the pitch. Ferrazzo beats it like Picasso.